Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started here this morning. Good to see you all again for class here. Glad that you've come and given us the opportunity to interview Bill and Dianne. I'm looking forward to this. Bill and I get together and have lunch every once in a while, and I always enjoy our times together, not just for the food, but for the conversations that we get to have together, and we share that bond over the calling that we've had in preaching, and of course, Dianne, you've been a school teacher, and my mother's a school teacher, so just lots of connections in that way. But so we just want to spend some time asking some questions here this morning and letting them talk and share with you. And I know many of you know them, but hopefully we can flesh out some things here today that maybe nobody does know.
Hand me my Bible, please.
So let's just start with, let's talk a little bit about your personal history. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? What was your vocation? And, how did you all meet?
You go first.
I was born in Hartner, Kansas, and I grew up in Isabel. Isabel's a very small town, down between Pratt and Medicine Lodge.
Okay.
And was reared in the church in Isabel, mostly family there. The young man and his wife sitting beside us this morning his dad's a product of that church. We had a preacher whose name was...
I thought you were going to say priest there for a second.
No.
Like, what kind of church Christ is this?
Let me see. Bobby Heiss. And he became a youth minister after he did his preaching in Isabel. But we'd gone someplace, and we were in the car with Bobby. Bobby couldn't hear. So I don't know how he heard what we said, but he said, "Why haven't you girls been baptized?" It was just the four of us. My cousin Janet, myself, a friend named Cindy, and my sister Rita. And why haven't you girls been baptized? Well, I said I wanted to wait for this guy to come back named Tex something. I forgot who Tex was, but he was a good preacher. And he said, well, I don't know why you're waiting. So one Wednesday night, all four of us were baptized together. 3 of the 4 are faithful Christians. 2 of us married preachers, and 1 married an Army kid. So I was raised very well. I was raised very strict. Yeah, that's enough. Went to Oklahoma Christian.
Yes.
Almost didn't go to Oklahoma Christian because I met Bill at a skating party.
Oh.
And I could see where the road was going to go, and I really wasn't ready to go down that road, but went to OC anyway. They had one of the elders at the church in Isabel would hire a preacher for his daughter to marry. And when Wayland Whitlow came, Wayland was supposed to be my husband. But Wayland didn't want me for a wife, and I didn't want him for a husband. So his daughter, who was Uncle Donald's daughter, who was engaged to someone else, when that engagement broke off, she married Wayland. So I got to pick my own.
That's good. That's good. Speaking of arranged marriages, with the preacher involved, so many of you all met MJ back here, who's on an internship here from India. And over there in the Churches of Christ, the Church of Christ preachers arrange for the marriages in the congregation. So I thought, if somebody needs me to do this, we can start this tradition here in Wichita. So I can arrange these things. But you're talking about Bobby Heiss. I actually. Well, I've talked several about mentors this morning. Bobby Heiss was my, at Sunset, teacher for youth ministry.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I originally thought that I wanted to go into youth ministry, and he was there, and he died actually our second year there. But Bobby was a sweet, wonderful man. And
I've got a story to tell about Bobby. He was, of course, he got to baptize all four of we young ladies, but he couldn't hear. And he met my grandmother, whose last name was Sleeper. And he said, "What is your last name?" And I don't remember which one did it, but somebody went, "Sleeper." Oh, I know. But at a time in his life, he had a baby boy, and he heard that baby boy cry. And he got his hearing back for just a short period of time.
Yeah.
But wonderful, wonderful young man.
Yeah.
And a wonderful family.
Yeah.
It's Bill's turn.
All right.
Well, I grew up in Hutchinson, Kansas. I remember I had an aunt that came by and picked up my brother and I. I have one brother. Dianne has 4 brothers and a sister. She didn't tell you that, but they had a whole family full. My aunt used to come by and pick us up and take us to church. I remember about 5 when my parents were baptized at 14th and Adams in Hutchinson. And grew up there in that church, eventually moved up on Plum Street.
I can fill in any details.
Yes.
Do.
I can fill in any details.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna get there. We were fortunate enough, if you haven't gathered, Linda was one of the older young ladies in the church. So she deserved that one. We were fortunate enough to have a preacher move in there by the name of Dwayne Eggleston. It was probably one of the first. He was a preacher, youth minister, you name it type of minister. And Dwayne taught us how to serve. And we were fortunate enough to be there. I was baptized when I was 12 there at the church, at the 14th and Adams Church. We'd had a camp out in the parking lot. And I think 3 of us boys were baptized the next morning. Always tease Linda, and she will tell you she doesn't remember this, but she was the teenage girl that sat behind me and flipped me on the ear every time I would misbehave. So that's the way I remember her as a teenager growing up. And she denies it, but that's
You probably misbehaved often, didn't you?
that's probably why I'm as good as I am today.
Yes.
Because of the twin sisters that she was watching.
She also has twin sisters that were the same age as I, or a year younger than I am. Most of you know Janet and/or Janice. They've been around here. Janice has. She married Kurt Johnston, so some of you know that. I also went to Oklahoma Christian. Dianne tells you about she almost didn't go there. Well, we met at a church skating party in Hutchinson. We had a skating party every Monday, the first Monday of every month during the winter. And there was one night that 3 young ladies came in. She talked about 4, but one of them wasn't there. There was just the 3. We found out very quickly that one of them was already engaged to the preacher, and the other 2 were available, and I found one of them. She always says if she'd have known my name was Charles, she would never have married me.
I've never dated him first. Yeah, that's the first thing you got to do is not date him if you don't like the name.
Just the one little story, and I'll quit. I made my first date with her dad. I kept telling her I was going to come down to Isabel and take her out. So I called down there one day to make a date with her. She wasn't home. And her dad accepted the date. And when she got home, he informed her that she had a date with me. And she showed up. She was there when I got, even though I didn't know how to find the place, drove to Isabel, Kansas, and didn't know where it was. They had this payphone out front, out in downtown Isabel. So I put my nickel in and called them, and I could hear them talking, but they couldn't hear me talking to them. And that was back in the time where you made the phone call first, and then when the person answered, you put the money in the phone. Well, I didn't know of such a thing. Now, that ages us, Mike. We were talking about that. That ages us. I went to Oklahoma Christian, majored in Bible. Dianne majored in education. So we moved from there. I preached in western Kansas and in central Kansas for 20 years. Unfortunately, I was very involved in Silver Maple Camp. A lot of you know that. I directed Silver Maple Camp for 13 years, was involved actually with saving Silver Maple Camp. There was a situation out in the Kingman area, and myself and the old patriarch preacher Otis Webb and Jimmy Keys, we were involved with convincing the Maple family that we still ought to have Silver Maple Camp. The bad thing about that was I directed all 3 weeks the first year. And that's a chore, but it's a very, very vital part of this area, still thriving today, so I'll quit.
So you all both were raised in the church, is that
Yeah.
what I
Yes.
understand? How was your experience in the church growing up? What impressions did it leave upon you?
Well, Isabel's a very small place. The church at Isabel was very conservative. Everybody knew what I believed and how I felt. One of our school teachers, my class had the first prom as juniors and then a senior prom. And I said I wasn't going. I was helping prepare for the junior prom, but I wasn't going. And the preachers, one of the teachers said, "Dianne, you can go with me. It'd be all right." Well, one of the kids went to the library and got the Bible, and she said, "Here, show him why you can't go." So, and then I got German measles. So I couldn't go anyway. But anyway.
The Lord's providence, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Well,
But it's been good for me.
like I said, I was fortunate enough that we had Dwayne. And Dwayne, my whole growing up teen years, Dwayne taught us as teenagers how to serve. And we went out and we served, we cleaned yards, we did stuff in the community. We took communion to the shut-ins on Sunday afternoon. We were very involved in all of those types of things. So it was a good experience through high school. And with Dwayne there, and of course it had helped me when I became a preacher, because when the churches I preached for didn't have youth ministers and senior ministers and all of that. I was the preacher and the youth minister and the lawn boy and the sidewalk cleaner, and we went to church one time right after I'd moved to Augusta, and it was in the winter, and it snowed on a Wednesday night, and nobody shoveled the sidewalks before church on Wednesday night. I thought, well, surely they'll be cleaned on Sunday. Well, Sunday morning they still weren't shoveled, and people had to walk on that ice. They were never not shoveled after that, the 5 years that I was there. But that was just kind of one of those things, you do, preachers do sometimes in these little churches. They get a lot more. And I was fortunate enough that I was taught that by Dwayne. And Linda will tell you, too, how much Dwayne meant to all of us as kids growing up.
He was that way to the very end.
Yeah.
I want to say one more thing about Isabel. They had preachers come in. They had a young man coming on Sunday from Oklahoma Christian. His name was Jerry Wheeler. And I was fortunate enough to get to know his brother and get to know Linda better, and then his two nephews.
And his mom and dad.
And his mom and dad. We sat behind Raymond and what was her name? We sat behind them at worship for a long time. but it was Jerry that I met first. And he would get up and preach, and Jerry's fingers weren't straight, they were crooked. And anyway, I got to know him first.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what you feel like are some of the talents that God has given you all and the way that you've used them throughout your life.
This lady doesn't know any stranger. If you've been around long enough, you'll know she gets in trouble. When we went to Seattle and visited the kids, she got in trouble for talking to little kids in lines. You don't do that in Seattle, Washington. So we went to Washington, D.C., and she got in trouble up there too for doing the same thing. That was probably 15, 20 years later. So she hasn't learned her lesson. There's never a little kid that she won't talk to. There's very few adults that she won't talk to. She'll make people talk to her if they won't talk to her. She will go and meet people, and she has a tremendous talent of doing that. So I got to brag on her on that.
Yeah.
We had the grandkids with us one time. We stopped at a rest stop, and I was visiting with a lady, I don't remember coming or going, and Eric's daughter Kylie said, "I didn't know you knew her," and I said, "I don't." But anyway, I talked to everybody. And it's been helpful.
Yes.
Because when we have door duty, or even when we don't have door duty at the church building, that's one of the reasons, the ways I got to know Lee is because we visited. We both used to have sons that played soccer. So when I meet somebody, I can probably tell you their life history, but don't ask me what their name is, because I can't remember that. But that's happened to me several times, and there's several people, members of the church in different places that came, that when they came in the door, I greeted them and said hello and remembered them afterwards. So that's probably my one gift.
Bill, how about your talents?
I don't know. It's probably being able to share. I don't know, a number of years ago, we had Steve Buggeln in here with Herald of Truth.
Yeah.
And he talked to us about Jesus stories. And I've taken that, and through my, with our camping group, you know, Dianne and I camp quite a bit. A number of years ago, we used to leave every Saturday night or Sunday morning so we'd come to church. And the group approached us one day and said, "Why do you keep leaving?" And we told them why. And they said, "Well, why are you leaving? Why don't you do why don't you do a church service for us?" So every Sunday morning when we're camping, it's just accepted that we have church. And it's always Saturday night. "What time's church tomorrow?" they call it. And this is my song leader. And we have a Bible lesson. We have a Bible story, a Jesus story. That has progressed on into being the chaplain for the whole group in the state of Kansas. And then about 3 years ago, I was asked to be the chaplain for the international organization that meets once a year. And then this last year, they called me. There's also a retirees group that meets once a year for an international convention. And they said, "Would you be the chaplain for that too?" So I get to tell Jesus stories, and I love to tell Jesus stories.
Yeah.
So
I guess that was it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And being able to tell those stories and hopefully live that life we're getting acquainted with other people, and those people are telling us their stories. And it's very rewarding to be able to meet with people and hear their stories. This spring in Texas, we met a lady whose house had burned down, and her neighbor had found a piece of their Bible in their front yard. And they took the Bible and put that page into a frame. And she had they were living in their camper at the time because their house was gone. But she brought that, and then Bill used that for his object lesson then when he was speaking to everybody. It's been very rewarding. It's it's been very rewarding, and hopefully we're helping others.
Yeah. So the Lord has blessed you with a ministry at this point in your life, but you were talking earlier about a number of years where you served as a preacher and in Central and South Kansas. So tell us a little bit about those years, the joys you had in ministry, and maybe some of the challenges too.
This was the best preacher's wife a preacher could have. We started out in a little community out in western Kansas called Ransom, Kansas. And if you don't know where that is, it's north of Ness City, south of Waukene. If you don't know where those are, it's out west. Real nice little farming community, and they loved us to death. And we still have close friends out there. Dianne, we had our first child there in Ransom, and we still have friends there. I still go back out, still have the opportunity. I can go back out there and preach. They don't have a preacher anymore. I can go back out there and preach anytime I want to. The problem is it's 200 miles one way to get there.
Oh my.
And another 200 miles back. We went from there to Texas, was only there 10 months, went down there as an associate minister, youth minister, was there 6 months, and they told me I wasn't getting the results with the teens I needed and that we needed to leave. And we had 4 months and found a church in Great Bend, moved to Great Bend. 3 more children were born there. Dianne organized a teacher resource room there. I don't know whether it's still there or not, but she organized a teacher resource room there. And we preached for the church there in Ransom for almost 10 years. I mean, Great Bend. In Great Bend for almost 10 years. And had a really good work there, really good time. Moved from there over to Augusta and preached for the church in Augusta for 5 years. We were fortunate enough during that time to, actually the building that was there was packed clear full. It was so full that on Sunday we had a couple that we were working with, and I still remember his story. He told me he came to church one Sunday morning, he walked in the back foyer and looked in there and couldn't see a seat. So he turned around and went back home. Dianne decided after that, and she was fortunate enough when we were in Augusta that there was another lady there, and they went back to school and recertified as school teachers. Dianne began to do some substitute school teaching in the Augusta community. Decided that we wanted to buy a home, plant some roots, give our children some security, and not move them all of the time. So talked with the church there about that. 3 months later, or a month later, the elders sat down with me and said, "We think it's time that you need to leave." They told me that on Monday night. We signed contracts on a house Tuesday night and said, "Okay, Lord, where are we going now?" And there again, Dianne developed a resource room in the church and actually gained some of the animosity of the elders' wives because they just didn't like the way she did things. And so I'd like to say it's all her fault that we...
No, it's not.
But actually, the biggest thing that was the problem and why I was asked to leave the church in Augusta was because I was too involved in the community. I have never understood that, but one of the elders there, and it took him 2 years to convince the other 3 that they needed to ask us to leave, and that was hard. That was probably the hardest time that we had. When we decided, okay, Lord, where are we going to go now? I ended up running a convenience store for 14 months. Dianne started teaching school in Douglas and stayed there for 23 years and did an excellent job. She has kids all over. We don't go anywhere anymore that we don't run into one of her kids. She doesn't recognize them anymore, but we don't run into one of her kids. So I did that for 14 months and then got the opportunity to go to work for Southwestern Bell. And the Lord blessed us. The one thing, it hurt when I was asked to leave Childress. It hurt. I didn't understand that. It hurt again when we were asked to leave Augusta. It really hurt when we were asked to leave Augusta because it seemed like the work was going so good there and things were flourishing. The church building was packed full. We started looking for a church to worship at because I vowed in my heart, and we vowed in our hearts, that we would never split or tear a church apart because of us.
Yeah.
And we could have torn the church in Augusta completely. I don't mean it. There was always two sides to everything, and they sided up. There were souls that were lost over that. There were people that left the church there, just like what happened here a number of years ago, and they never came back. And that pains me more than anything. But as we started looking for churches, we stopped in every church between Augusta and Central.
Yeah.
At that time. I mean, we were at South Emporia, we were at Emporia Avenue, we were at Greenwich, we were in Andover, we were in Douglas. And we went to all of these churches, and every one of them, when we came there and we went to worship for them, oh, we got this job we can do for you, and we got this we can do for you.
You can do for us.
Yeah, you can do for us. And the thing I remember more than anything, and I think Dianne will share this, is Tom Bedachek came over one day for lunch and took Dianne and I out to lunch. And we sat there in the restaurant and we were talking, and his comment to Dianne and I was, Bill, you and Dianne come to Riverwalk, or come to Central, and you be a part, and you just heal. When you're ready to go to work, there'll be a place for you to go to work. But until you're ready, you can just be Bill and Dianne. And that's what Bill and Dianne needed right then. And then our youngest son said, are we ever going to place membership? And so we did, and that's been 1988, probably 1989, that we came to Central, and we've been here ever since, and this is home.
Yep.
Yeah. Dianne, what were those ministry years like for you?
They were good.
Yeah.
They were good. Bill and I have friends everywhere.
Yeah.
I rearranged silverware in way too many kitchens. And when we came to Central, I said, I'm not touching the silverware. I'm a little OCD, but I didn't like all the mess. So, and I had done all the teacher planning rooms that I wanted to do. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed teaching ladies Bible class, and that's one of the things I wanted to do when I retired, was find a ladies Bible class that I would enjoy. So far, that has not happened. I was with Teresa. Where is Teresa today?
She's not here.
I know that.
So birthdays.
She and I went to a class in Augusta. There were only about 4 of us there, but we met there. But I really haven't found a ladies' Bible class that I want to go to yet. So, and I'm busy. My retirement's busy. I miss the kids. The Reese kids just cringe when I come close to them. Oh no, here she comes again. But I love them to pieces, and I think they finally know that. But I love kids. I love kids. I love kids. I loved 6th graders. I had a wonderful time, and the problem with knowing the kids now is these guys grow this stuff on your face and you can't see who they are. So, and the girls, after you have 70 kids every year, you just forget names. So, but I love kids.
Yeah. So tell me about a time when you felt God's presence was especially close in your life.
Back in the late 70s, I was doing Silver Maple Camp. The first year I did 3 weeks of Silver Maple Camp. The next year, they finally opened up a little bit, and we got Waylon Whitlow in to do 1 week, and I did 2. And then the next year, my men in Great Bend said, Bill, you can only do 1 week of Silver Maple Camp. And so John Hamm came in to take the 3rd week, and so the 3 of us did the camp. I did all of the organization of the camp, and then they would come in and direct their week of camp. One of the things that I thought was so important, and I'm a city boy, understand, I grew up in the city, in the lights, on the asphalt, and didn't know a whole lot about farming and out in the country until after I met her and got farmized by her family. I always took the kids at night for our closing devotional every night. We went out in the middle of the plowed field away from the lights. And I remember one night out there in the middle of that field, it was a beautiful full moon night, and the moon came out from behind the clouds. And it was just like God turned on a light. And that has stuck in my mind for ever since, of just the beauty of that time. And if you haven't ever enjoyed the full moon, we're fortunate enough, we have a house that is a passive solar home, so the south side of our house, there's windows up high and there's no curtains on them. We have a full moon that shines in every month if it's not cloudy. And it's fantastic to look up and see that moon, if you can see it through the trees.
Yeah, right, sure.
And the stars in the morning, the crisp winter mornings when I walked out to get my newspaper, when I took a newspaper. At 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning. And the star displays are just unbelievable on a cold, crisp winter morning.
Yeah.
That's when I feel the closest to God.
Yeah. How about you, Diane?
I've felt the Spirit move through me several times for little incidental things, and everybody says, well, not everybody, but people say, he doesn't work that way. Well, I'm sorry, he does. But the closest I've been was just a couple of months ago. I was waiting on a doctor to call back. I had gotten in the car to go somewhere. I was talking to my sister on the phone, not this phone, but the car phone. Then the doctor called. They didn't wait for me to answer the car phone. They called me on my cell phone. I tried to get the cell phone out. While I was getting the cell phone out, I made a turn. I missed the stop sign. And I pulled out in front of a great big red semi. If the Lord hadn't been with me, I'd be with Sherry. But I wasn't ready to go. But I just said, thank you, Lord. Pulled over to the side. There was room for me to pull off the road, get myself back together, forget the doctor's call, forget my sister's call, and go to where I was going to go. It's the closest I felt to God lately. So.
About the flip side of that, have you ever had a time in your life when you felt like that the Lord's presence was absent, or that perhaps you'd been abandoned?
Last year, we talked about this last night. Last year, and I have to honestly say, the one thing that I still don't understand to this day, I know God answers prayers, and I know He answered my prayer. He just didn't answer it the way that I thought it needed to be answered when we lost Sherry. And I think Dianne and I will both tell you that's the hardest time that we have ever gone through, and we're still going through. And then ironically this year, at the same time that she got sick with COVID and was in the hospital, Dianne and I got COVID, and we're confined to home. And that was hard. And
I never got angry at God. I didn't blow up at him, but I didn't get angry. But I was so disappointed. Sherry was working in the life of her husband. Her stepdaughter was trying to find the Lord at that time. Her daughter, Terry, was trying to find her way back to the Lord, because she had been away for 10 years. She was trying to find her way back to the Lord. And I had all these reasons that Sherry needed to be here. And God said, no. I don't understand it. I've accepted it. I don't understand it. Eric challenged us several years ago to have a devotion every day, to read something every day, and then write a prayer or write what that meant to you. Well, I've been doing that. I started out with the little book that Riverwalk gives you. While we were at Eric's, I got a Power for Today, and I switched to Power for Today. And then just before we left Eric's, I got another Power for Today. So I'm coming to the end of that one, but then every night I write that prayer in the first person instead of the general prayer.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed at how many times it really suits me. And I thank Eric for that.
Yeah.
Melody, let him know, okay?
Speaking of scripture, do you have a particular passage of the Bible or a story that ministers to you or speaks to you that has kind of become a favorite of yours?
We helped Sherry's daughter Terry move last Friday, a week ago. And she doesn't have a path. She doesn't know where she's going. She knows where she's been. She knows the life that her dad showed her. And then I saw this little plaque when we were shopping yesterday, and I've known about it for quite a while, but the Lord has a plan for you. When I fixed a quilt for Tanner, I put the Bible verse on it. The Lord has you written in the palm of his hand. And I think both of those passages are from Jeremiah. The Lord knows you. The Lord knows me. The Lord knows Tanner. The Lord knows Terry. And he has a plan for all of us. It's up to us to find that plan. It's up to us to make our way. Not easy. Not easy. But it's up to us to do that.
Bill, you have a scripture that really speaks to you?
yeah, we talked about this last night. I think the one that I've settled on the last year and a half or 2 years is from the book of Esther. In the 4th chapter, when Mordecai talks to Esther and he's trying to convince her that she needs to go to the king. And he says, this is a Bill paraphrase, but what he says is maybe God put you in this place at this time for this reason.
Yeah.
And I've become convinced that God puts every one of us in places of opportunity. It might be a hug. It might be a hello. It might be I don't know what the response would be or what it can be. I had one of you who told me when we had our, and I don't mean this to put any accolades on me, but when we had the 50 plus here a couple of 3 weeks ago, I happened to be the one that did the prayer that Sunday. And one of the things that was very close in my heart was the idea that there are you, some of you out there, who have lost your mate. And I had one of you who came to me and said, Bill, I was really hurting and really down and really in bad shape that day until you made your comments and you said your prayer. And I prayed about you who had lost your mate, as well as those of us who were still blessed with our mates. And I believe, honestly, that God had me in that place at that time for that reason. And I think there's every day, whether it's that checkout person that's grumpy, or that person behind you or in front of you that's angry or whatever it might be, God has you in that place at that time for a reason. And you can either be positive and good, or you can be bad. And I've taken that lesson and preached it and taught it and gone on to other Bible stories.
Yeah.
Maybe God has you in this place at this time for this reason.
Yeah.
I'll quit preaching.
Hey, show me the water. I'm ready. So we're about time to draw things to a close. Let's talk about, none of us know the future, of course, but what do you see ahead in your life? What do you want and desire and hope for in the next few years?
Oh,
I want to be able to laugh.
Yeah.
We were soon after, a little after Sherry died. We had gone camping and we were playing cards. We ladies like to get to play cards and get together and play cards. And somebody said, "Oh, Diane, it's so good to hear you laugh again." And one day I was in Walmart. Somebody came and looked me up and they said, "Oh, we heard you laugh. We knew you were here." And I worked with a couple teachers, and I moved from 4th grade to 6th grade. And one of them came to me and said, "Diane, we miss your laugh." So I hope that through the rest of my life, I'll be able to laugh and have joy in my heart brought by the Lord.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
I suppose that I have to say that I want to continue to tell Jesus stories. The last year, the bucket seems like it's empty. I've had a hard time getting something in the bucket. I've struggled with that, and I'm still struggling with that, of finding the inspiration or finding the motivation or whatever to get that bucket. I need my bucket filled back up,
Yes.
but I would want to continue to be that person's in that place at that time for that reason, and continue to tell Jesus stories.
Yeah. Well, Bill and Diane, thank you for sharing with us here today and opening your heart and your life to us. Thank you for your many years of service, both in the church and in school teaching, and also for you're an elder here, and then continue to serve and be an encouragement to us. So I'd like to close with a prayer for the two of you all, and then we'll dismiss, okay? Father, thank you for Bill and Diane. Thank you for this last 30 or 40 minutes we've had where we can just share in their life and share in the joys and also the struggles, Father. We all, through our own experience, know that the life is full of mixed mixed things, sometimes blessings, sometimes difficulties, and Bill and Dianne have seen their share of both. And so I pray that you would bless them and that you would help them, yes, indeed, to find the joy and the laughter of life again and reassure their hearts in that. And also in the ministry that they do as they continue to work with those who they travel with, and also just to be a part of this congregation here and sharing in that. And Father, I just ask that you would bless their desires in that, and that you would continue to make them fruitful in the place that you have placed them. So Father, we're grateful for them here today and grateful for this time we've shared together. We ask all this in the name of Christ. Amen.
People, it's good to go home. Love you, Daddy.